Justice.
Justice now.
Well, hello, hello. And thank you for joining another Obstruction to Justice program where we discuss relevant topics of the day, highlighting legislative economic issues, community and business reports. And we definitely speak with great movers and shakers that are doing things in our community. I'm Ann Moles. Thanks for joining. Today, we're going to talk with attorney Donna Watson, owner of the Legacy Experience LLC. And attorney Watson will be sharing with us information about estate planning. Now, this is general information and should not be construed as specific legal advice. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you, Ann. I'm so grateful to join your program today.
Well, we're definitely glad that you joined. Most definitely. It's interesting to know that one thing that I like about the greater Kansas City area is that there are a lot of people doing big things around here. It's about the people that make the town go. Now we have more than just great barbecue.
Right, that's right.
We do have great barbecue, more than just great barbecue, and of course, more than the Chiefs. How about those
How
Chiefs?
about those Chiefs?
We're headed to that Super Bowl, and shout outs to them, big ups to them. But Donna, you're going to be sharing with us information about estate planning. Tell us about estate planning. What's going on? What should we know?
Well, thank you so much. I'm really always glad to kind of share in this lane. It's something that I'm very passionate about. My day job is a trust administrator at Country Club Trust Company. But in addition to that, I have my own business where I provide estate planning resources to the community. And one of the things that I wanted to do with my life was leave some type of legacy that was important to me. And I didn't really know how to go about that. You hear about people that are benefactors and people who have charitable and benevolent intent, and they're able to leave such lasting legacies. And that always intrigued me. And then after I dealt with some losses in my family, particularly my parents and most specifically my mother, I really realized that this was the area of law that I wanted to work in. And it was the area that I really felt I could realize my purpose. And so when I talk about estate planning, it's something that affects us all. And I think it gets a bad rap, if you will, because when you hear the term estate planning, it sounds very prestigious and it sounds like something that only the very wealthy would participate in. But it's something that we all can do. We all own something in life. And so I want to be that voice, especially in communities where we don't ordinarily talk about estate planning. I want to be that voice that is bringing certain conversations to light and bringing up certain topics that we don't normally talk about. I want us to normalize estate planning.
And that is super important. I think, how many times do we hear about people, of course, to be prepared to move on to transition is a big thing, transition in life. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So as far as estate planning, to be prepared for that transition. Now, I don't know, we're all going to have that time where we're gonna get out of here, move on. But yes, I agree, and I appreciate that you're focusing on too, to let people know that it's not just for the wealthy to provide or to have an estate plan, because if you have something, right?
That's right.
We work hard for our homes and other, things that we have. We accumulate, but definitely property, valuables, heirlooms. Hmm? You
That's
know?
yes.
Yeah, so, that right there is something that we should be mindful of as we live and pass along the legacy and heritage. And yes, there are a lot of communities, and I think really it's about the socioeconomic, maybe the lower end of socioeconomic communities, no matter what ethnicity you are.
Mhm.
But still, the lower end, you think, hey, well, all I did was just work for a company for 10, 20, 30 years and that's it. Well, if you purchased a home, even if you stayed in a location for a long period of time, what about what you've accumulated in the home? Is that what we're talking about when it comes to estate
Absolutely.
planning?
And you really summarized that well. And I think what we have to do is think about every time we purchase property, every time we have a life change, a marriage, a divorce, a birth. Those are times where we need to evaluate what we own, how it's owned, and then how it would be distributed at your death. And during our lifetime, as we were talking, as you were mentioning, we do acquire property, but we also invest. We have life insurance. We may have 401ks or IRAs. And what I feel we are missing in our conversations in certain communities is about that those are opportunities to build generational wealth. This is an opportunity for us to invest in something that can outlive us and that can affect the next generation. So if I live my life in such a way that I live a little under my means
Mhm.
and put money away, that I can then make it a little bit better for that next generation in my family. Because I think what we too often do is reinvent the wheel at each generation level. So my child would want to buy a home when they're in their 20s, and then they'll have to work 10 years or so to get enough money to have a down payment. Whereas if we started thinking generationally, I will invest money and have that money start growing and building so that when my kids are in their 20s, they can just take that money and buy a home. And so the delay in building wealth isn't there. They're
Mhm.
able to begin readily building their own wealth because they had a springboard. And that's something that we haven't always done a good job with. And it's not because of anything deliberate in most cases.
Well, I was just gonna ask because what about, I'm not saying all culture, as Americans, I know Americans across the board, no matter what ethnicity you are,
Yeah.
there's a socioeconomic, even the middle class, and we consider middle class. Okay, maybe not the 70s upper 70s, 80s, 150,000 a year, but maybe just the average Jane and Joe who worked hard and maybe they weren't making that, but still, the mindset to say, well, what is this thing about estate planning? Okay, well, I have a burial policy at my job. That's kind of what they go on. I have a burial policy at my job, which is enough to bury you, probably. Maybe not. Just depends on how you want to go because some of these can get kind of elaborate. But then, I'm thinking, well, hey, yeah, taxes, property taxes have gone up, rent's gone up, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we're not thinking about the next generation. We're trying to survive where we are now, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that is um, that's fair, and it's an accurate description of what's going on.
Mhm.
We have a wide wage disparity,
Yes.
especially among certain ethnicities. Let's just be honest. But I still believe that there are opportunities to invest and there are opportunities to leave a legacy. There's those family homes, and maybe the home isn't necessarily, a $500,000 home, but it's a home that you lived in and were able to raise your family in. Let's talk about leaving that home to someone, and maybe that person doesn't live in the home the rest of their life, that second generation. Maybe they sell it and they use those monies, those proceeds to invest in another home. Well, that's building generational wealth.
Okay.
Giving them the opportunity to move forward. And there's a lot of opportunities that I think people miss out on. Say, for instance, life insurance. And I think it becomes daunting because as we age, we have more ailments and premiums can be a little bit more. Let's just be honest. But if we invest in life insurance early in life, those premiums are rather affordable, and you can invest in life insurance, and that can be a way that creates some income replacement should something happen to you. And that's one aspect or one technique or device that I think people sometimes discount because they're thinking, oh, well, I can't afford a $500,000 policy. Even if you had like a $10,000 or $20,000 policy, that's $10,000 or $20,000 that you could leave to your family to help them to address any bills or expenses after you die, or to help them so that they can use that money to invest in the market and then grow their own wealth.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about that, because again, we think how estate planning sounds so big. Okay, if I'm not leaving the $500,000, dollar policy or $1 million policy or $100,000 policy or whatever, but even if it's something, is what I'm hearing, that it's important to think about just to leave something and do something for your family.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I also think we need to start having conversations with our families early in life about investing, about putting money away. And while things are difficult, and especially like we're in COVID-19, what is this, the 11th month of quarantine, it's very real that people have some of them have lost their jobs. Some of their hours have been reduced. These are tough times for a lot of people. So I don't want to sound like I'm not being mindful of where we are. But what I also know is where we are right now is not where we will always be. And so we have to be poised and ready to pivot when circumstances change. So when people get back on their feet, and I do say when, because I am a believer that things always turn around.
They do.
So when we get into a position where things are different, how are we going to be different with our money and our assets? What I learned during the pandemic is that I need a lot less than I realized. And I tend to think of myself as a pretty frugal person, but I need a lot less than I realize. And so in knowing that, there have been times where two things: I have been able to put more money away, and there have been times where I have been able to be a blessing to other people. So I think in those two things, I am sowing for my future, because I feel when you help other people, it comes back to you. That's not why I do it, but I just know that that principle is true. And then when I put money away because I'm not spending as much, that gives me an opportunity to create more wealth for me and for future generations in my family and my community. So I think it's very important that we start having those conversations. I know in my household, my mother told me to save money, and that was about it, just save money. And so how do you save? But I think in this particular climate, there are so many opportunities to hear about saving. There are all kinds of online platforms. I just recently joined a group on Clubhouse, the platform, and all they do is just talk about different like wealth building strategies. And I was like, my goodness, this is amazing. So we have so much more access to information now. And I still think we're probably more financially illiterate than we've ever been. It's almost like it's too much and people
Well,
don't know where to go and where to start.
you're right in that, but don't we kind of get conflicting messages? Now, if we're watching TV, if we watch TV and if we're looking at the media, if we're doing anything, outside of our homes, and now we're in our homes, so that's all we, have can do pretty much, right, is watch TV. What you're looking at, we're even called consumers.
Mhm.
Right? The term that they call Americans, they call us consumers, right? So with that, since we are in that mindset, it's like a tug of war thing. On one hand, we probably should save at least for an emergency fund, but then on the other hand, there's not so much surplus income to where you can save and still look like you want to look based on what you see and have what you want to have based on what you see
Mhm.
and want to consume because you want to fit in or whatever. So there's still a tug of war there as far as what I see and what's going on. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's absolutely accurate. There's so much information that people can get confused, and it's hard to know who to trust. And so I think in those times it's very important to get mentorship. I know that
Mm,
I had mentorship in my
good.
professional career. I think it's important to get mentorship in your financial world, in your financial life,
Mhm.
because there are people that are successful, and I say successful financially. They
And
have,
let
yeah,
hold on to that
okay,
because here's what I'm kind of saying, and maybe I'm not saying it right, but the older I get, I see what success really is, right?
yeah.
In that, of course, we know that there's, I'm as a believer, okay, people know that I'm a believer. As a believer, that's the first successful relationship we need to have, right? So we have that success, but then the success that we really aren't aware of because as here in America, we may make 50,000 and we take it. That's not really enough. We should be balling bigger than that, whatever. But compared to the rest of the world, is what I try to encourage people to look at. Okay, we're really blessed here in America, even if you're making X amount of dollars, okay, less than 50, maybe 35,000 or whatever, you're still blessed because based on the category out of 7 billion people on this planet, you're not doing bad. If
That's
you
right. That's right. And I think one of the things that I talk about is living well. And I believe everyone should live well. Now, what is the definition of living well? And living well for me is not being um, out of my boundaries. Okay. Like I have to live according to what I make. And I cannot be persuaded to be something I am not, because that is what I should be doing at this age. That's where I should be as an attorney. I should be, balling out, as you said. I have to be honest about where I am financially. I
okay.
have, if I have debt and I have a home and I have a student loan that I am just trying to get.
Ah,
Okay. So those are the two things that drive my decision,
mhm,
because
mhm,
I have made a decision that I am going to be done with these two things
okay.
very soon.
Mm,
And so for me, living well is not having the burden of debt on my shoulders. Then I can really invest without uh, fear and trepidation. I can bless other people with my money and not think anything about it because I have everything that I need. And so then
okay.
it was the conversation about, well, then what are your needs?
Mhm,
We only have three basic needs: food, clothing, and shelter. Those,
good.
that's all we have. But we've told ourselves that we need I must be in the right schools. I must drive this certain vehicle. I must wear these certain clothes. But none of that was what was promised to us. It was that we would have what we needed and our
Mhm.
needs. And if our basic needs are fulfilled, then we are blessed. We're rich. We're
And that's the whole point. That's the reality of what I know to be true. Okay. Now, you said the big D word, which is debt.
yes,
Okay. That's, guys, that's how lots of people are getting their stuff. All right.
yes,
Don't
it
be
is.
deceived about it.
Don't be deceived about it because
Yes.
honestly, okay, so I don't want to say you can't have it all. You have to make choices. And if someone seemingly has it all, then you have to sometimes think about what choices did they make to get it all.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so when I think about all for me is being able to rest at night, knowing that I'm worried that if I swipe my card, it may or may not go through. Uh, Being able to know if an emergency comes up, and you talked about that emergency fund, that's huge. Like you have to be able to put your hands on some money, and I think a lot of times we invest. We have retirement plans, but then when something comes up, we start drawing money out of that plan, and so really that's a debt. It's a debt to ourselves because we have an obligation to pay that back usually.
Right.
But we should be able to put our hands on some money. Okay.
Mhm.
And I uh, a few years ago took the Dave Ramsey course and
Yes.
then became a Dave Ramsey facilitator because I so um, identified with the principles that he spoke about,
Very good
and they were
advice, very good
yeah,
principle.
they were
Mhm.
definitely how I was living my life. But it gets to a point where you have got to be so desperate to be free that you're willing to make some changes. And I know a lot of people that have great homes with a lot of furniture, and they have all the right things. They're in all the right groups, and they are miserable because they are burdened with debt.
And
And
burdened with debt, and then where they don't have the surplus income or extra income because they're having to pay the debt and there's no estate planning.
yes, that's right. That's right. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to
I
that.
mean, it's full circle.
It is
Yeah.
full circle. It is full circle. And so some of the concepts that I want us to really focus on today is that there's lots of things that everyone should do when we're talking about estate planning. So estate planning, so we're building generational wealth. We're building wealth during our lifetime, but we're also planning about what we're going to do at our death. And so one of the things I tell everyone needs a durable power of attorney. And so what this document does, it assigns someone as your agent to act on your behalf. They can represent you in your financial matters. They can enter contracts for you. They can access your accounts should you become incapacitated.
Mhm.
That's very important because sometimes people become ill. And I think about people that are single and may not have children or a husband and or anyone that could readily step in. They need to assign someone as their agent under their durable power of attorney. Everyone should have that document, and especially in light of COVID-19, we saw people who were perfectly healthy one week and then pass away the next week. And so you need to have someone that's able to kind of access your financial affairs. Now, this durable power of attorney is only active and only gives authority to that agent that's assigned during your lifetime. So the person can't pass away and then you go to the bank and say, well, I have a durable power of attorney, because that power has expired at that point. But everyone should have one. It's just a way of just making sure that someone else can step into your role if you should become incapacitated, or just say you don't want to. I think about some of our seniors who are in facilities right now. And, a lot of those a lot of those independent living or dependent living facilities, they're not letting them go in and out. And so someone with uh, a durable power of attorney may be able to handle their affairs. And so it doesn't necessarily mean incapacitated. And that's when that power arrives, depends on how it's written. It can be springing or shifting, but it does give someone the power to have some control over your financial affairs. And that's very important.
I hadn't really even thought about that durable power of attorney until you mentioned it. And, when you become incapacitated, I mean, and that's kind of a scary thing, guys. But here's the thing, let's really think about it. Yes, there's got to be somebody in your life that you love and trust,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
To make sure that they don't try to get you committed or go against what you would want. So you might come into a windfall, come and find out, Uncle Seymour passed on, and here's $1 million, and durable power of attorney time.
Yes,
Stamp
exactly.
it, and you're out of there. Of course, you want to trust the person to make sure that they think the way that you think and would be engaged in that way. A responsible child or responsible sibling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. And I also think geographic proximity is important as well.
Okay.
Because sometimes you may become incapacitated and you'll need someone to step in for a long period of time. If your children live out of state, sometimes we think, well, that's the next person because that's my child,
Mhm.
if my spouse is deceased. But it needs to be someone that can actually step in and be able to serve in that role without delay or without extra effort, if you
Okay.
will. So those are just considerations, just considerations. And in addition to that, so we talked about this financial power of attorney, you
Mhm.
also need a healthcare power of attorney. And so why is that important? Because just as we were talking about COVID-19, we're over 400,000 deaths in America. If you should become sick, there needs to be someone that can talk about your health matters with your physicians. And it's a document that I think, oh, go ahead.
So those are two different documents?
Those are two different.
Really?
Now,
Okay.
sometimes you'll see attorneys draft them as a large bundle.
Okay.
There's this healthcare, there's the financial power of attorney. They may
Mhm.
have the living will, and I'll talk about that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But yes, they're separate documents, but they serve in different ways.
Gotcha.
But that healthcare power of attorney is very important because you think about there are HIPAA laws and privacy laws. People can't just, oh, that's my mother, what's going on with her, And so I have a healthcare power of attorney that's filed with all of my physicians, even my dentist. Okay,
Okay.
because you just never know, something can happen,
Mhm.
and that someone can step in and advocate for me or have discussions on my behalf.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I also want to talk about that uh, living will and
Okay.
that DNR. It depends on where you are and what those documents are called, but it's the authority that gives someone information about what end of life procedures you really would like. And
Mhm.
I think that that's the biggest blessing you can participate in, or that's the biggest blessing you can give to your family. Having those thoughts and those preferences written out,
Okay.
written out, written out, so that if something should happen to you, your family's not vacillating between keeping you, on the machine or letting you go. And because that is a very emotional time.
Mhm.
And you don't want to burden your family members with the guilt of making the wrong
Good
decision.
point. Good point.
And
Mhm.
so having those conversations, letting your family know what your preferences are, it's important. And I was thinking about, Zoom, StreamYard, whatever platforms we use. We've been communicating with our families probably more during this quarantine than we had before. We'll have Zooms and we'll play games. We'll have Zooms and just chat.
Mhm.
But let's have some conversations about some things that maybe you haven't broached in the past, because it's important. And I know this isn't what people think about when they say estate planning.
No.
We haven't talked about property yet. All
Okay. Yeah, that's true. Come on.
but that's important, okay?
Yes.
Because if you aren't here, okay, then we have to have other discussions. And so we want to start having these conversations. And I know, people feel facing their mortality, it's a hard thing, and it's uncomfortable, because who wants to be the child that's like, hey parent, if you pass away, what am I supposed to do? I mean, that's not a great lead off to a family discussion. And so what I tell people is to say, hey, I'm getting my matters in order. These are the things that I'm doing out of curiosity. What are you doing? Oh, I haven't done anything. And this is the thing that often frustrates me. I'm going to be dead, so it won't matter. Yes, it will.
Oh boy. Yeah. I've
It
heard that one
will.
too.
Yes,
Yeah.
it will. And then you remind them of someone close to them that passed away, and then whatever ordeal or not that they had to go through. Yes, it does matter. It matters because there's going to be someone that's going to have to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
And if we talk about we love our friends and family,
Yeah. Go ahead.
let's show that love.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
walk that love out all the way through. Okay, getting those matters in line.
In line. And we're talking about the legacy part, the heritage part. That's what there's the light bulb that just came on. If
Mhm.
you and you just hit the nail on the head right there. If you really love your family and you're talking about you love them, then deal with the legacy part to where we're in this life right here right now. We're not meant to be here forever
That's
it
right.
right here right now. Okay, there's other things that go on in life after whatever, but right here right now for this moment it's not that way. So when we say we love, we need to live our lives. What I'm hearing, Attorney Watson, is
Yeah.
that when we live our lives, we live them on purpose to
Mhm.
know that there's a transition. There are transition moments. There will be a transition moment, and you want to make your life matter and count
That's right.
in
That's
your
right.
family.
Absolutely. And we do so much to demonstrate our love.
Mhm,
We'll have birthday parties. We buy Christmas presents.
mhm,
We will celebrate our victories with one another. But why not, when we talk about a celebration of life, the
mhm,
greatest celebration of life is when someone has transitioned and their things are in order, and
mhm,
and you don't have that burden or that heaviness to
mhm.
deal with, because you're already grieving. And let me
Yes.
tell you, that is a difficult time to start making decisions. That's not the time to say, oh, am I going to sell a home? Am I going to keep a home? Am I
Mhm,
going to move? Am I going to? Because you're already taxed with so many other duties and tasks, and
mhm.
your emotions. Your
Yeah.
emotions can get the best of you during that time. So I think it's just so important to have these conversations early.
Well, let's go ahead and I want to take a look at and we can come back and do the other part here. But
Sure.
I think that's kind of a good segue to let's look at your website
Okay.
and we can because you're just giving it's just great. You're giving so much information and having us redirect really the attention of all of life, not just the living right now, but carrying on the legacy and heritage. And here, my legacy experience, your website there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the background, there's a reason why you started this business here.
Yes.
Did we really get into that enough? Because I think
No.
I'm more intrigued now.
Yes, yes. So
Yes.
in 2017, well, let's start. In 2016, Christmas 2016, my great aunt became ill. My mother was her caretaker, and we've always known my great aunt had some challenges at when she was a young child. She wasn't even expected to live past her teens,
Mm,
but she ended up living to the ripe old age of 97. Okay. And she always lived with us. And so our family has always been in a position where we've been caretakers to her. So I was always very clear about what my responsibility, and I say responsibility, would have been to my aunt. And my mother, she lived with my mother, and we would, as a family, help to support her in her needs. So fast forward into 2017, my aunt became ill and my mother became ill. And so my mother was this caretaker for my aunt, and both of them were ill at the same time. And so that became somewhat overwhelming. It was definitely a very emotional time for our family, but I was a person, and our family is a family of faith. I believed that my mother would be healed. And so when my aunt passed away, it was May 1st, 2017. I remember that day. I remember thinking, she lived a good life. She lived a long life. She was ill for 4 months of her 97 years. God be praised. Okay. Then that Friday, my mother died, the day of my aunt's funeral. And I was shocked. I was in shock. I was in shock because I was already grieving the passing of my aunt, and I could not believe that my mother passed that same week. Like, how did that happen?
Wow.
And I think not only was I shocked, I think I was trying to understand how I was going to navigate this new phase of my life without these two matriarchs. And in doing that, I was writing down everything that was happening to me. Oh, this happened. I remember trying to turn my mother's cell phone off, and they were like, oh, we need a death certificate. Oh, we need the program. Oh, we need some other proof that she's dead. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, who's making up somebody's dead to turn a cell phone off? And so I was writing these things down because I was like, oh, I have to share this with other people. And the more I wrote, the more I realized, hey, this is something I could probably house in a story and deliver in a book. And then just going through administering my aunt's estate and my mother's estate, there were just so many lessons. And my mother and I always had very candid conversations, but my mother and I didn't talk about what she had. And we didn't talk about, what I knew what her plans were, but we never talked about what kind of financial legacy she wanted to leave for her church, for me, for her friends. And so when she passed away, that was when I really discovered things. And I was just so taken aback. And so then I thought, well, if my mother could do this, and my mother had an associate's degree, she was born in 1940, segregated Kansas City. If my mother could leave a legacy, I was going to leave a legacy. And let me say this, and so were a lot of other people if I had my say in it. And so that's why I wrote the book. That's why I was like, I'm getting back into estate planning. I don't care if I have to open up my own shop, hang out my shingle. This is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life.
I'm glad that you did. I'm glad that you did. I mean, because when you think about estate planning, it's like, okay, guys, I've heard this before, right? But no, I really haven't. Okay. I haven't really heard it to the detail of where you're sharing it because look, as far as I thought it was just one durable power of attorney paper. But then all of the living wills, of course, are important and the healthcare part of it, healthcare part of making sure that things are in order it's just important. And then I'm thinking, okay, guys, where am I? Right. So then you get personal with it.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that's just it. It's to raise consciousness among my peers, among the community. And I always say this: if there's one thing that you take away from any presentation that I am a part of, is do one thing. do one thing in the next 30 days. And I don't care what that one thing is, but as long as you do one thing in the next 30 days. And I say 30 days because that gives you enough time to carve out a plan, to identify someone to help walk you through whatever that one thing is. And it's a short enough time horizon that you can stay accountable to get it done. Because I think sometimes our goals are too lofty and that we aren't specific enough. And so being able to just really decide that I'm going to make a change in one or two areas can make all the difference. And I think about when my great aunt and my mother passed away. My great aunt, because she was older, because she didn't have, a lot of assets, very early on, my mother and I got her a burial policy. And so all I had to do was just pick out the color of the casket. That's it. And
Yes.
the outfit she was going to wear. And so do you know how freeing that can be?
Freeing. Yes.
And we're not sitting there trying to get funds together or wait until, we get this check. And, it was just very freeing. And then when my mother passed away, it was the same situation. There were funds just available, or her plan just available to bury her. And so it really made me think. So I bought a cemetery plot last year. And you think about, I'm buying some real estate. You usually think about your home, but it was important to me. I want to be buried near them. And I didn't want anyone to use the resources that I'm saving to take care of that. I was just going to go ahead and take care of that. So now that's taken care of. And so
we just got a shout out from Brother Elder Willie Henderson, and he's saying this is where, as a people, we lack in this area. Much needed.
Yes.
So,
Thank you
yes,
so much.
he acknowledges that, and we've done big shout out. Thank you, Elder Henderson, for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's just sometimes it just takes a little bit of changes in our budgets. We think that it's going to be like $200, $500 a month, and sometimes it's not. And there are insurance agents that will work with you. There's sometimes people who might be uninsurable, but there are options. And so I think we just need to have those conversations and pursue those options because it's worth it. It's worth it to that family that's behind, especially if you have like minor children and, you have a spouse and you're a dual income household. What happens if something should happen to you? That dual income is what you all have kind of relied on. And so you have to just prepare. You just have to prepare. And it's funny because if we get a cell phone, we will immediately insure that cell phone. Why? Because we don't want to pay $750 to get a new one just right off the bat. We'll insure it, right? but
that is so true.
With our lives. We won't do that with our lives.
Well, and I think here we are. We're starting the conversation. Here's another time where our listeners will hear estate planning. And of course, they'll hear it in the detail and explanation of how you're sharing it and your story. So the testimony and how you kind of got going in this and how this is pretty much ordained. It's something that you feel led to do and to carry on so that people are aware of what they need to do. Now, I would take it even further, Donna, in that I believe that this should be part of what we teach young people as they grow to adulthood.
Absolutely.
I think it should be in that what you had just mentioned, if you have a spouse, two-wage earner household, what happens if one, passes on? These are things that they don't, young people, they have these big deer in the headlights looks on their faces as they go out, and then they just go from one extreme to the next and everything. And like you said, they'll insure that cell phone, but do they know that they really should be insuring their lives? And it's more than just life insurance.
That's right.
Yeah.
And these young people have something that we don't have. They have time. Okay. So if you think about, if you're investing, $20 every pay period when you're 20, and you leave that money alone, by the time you're in your 40s, you can have a substantial little nest egg. Now, $20 to a 20-year-old sounds a lot. Sounds like a lot each pay period, but it really isn't, because there are a lot of times we waste more money than we realize.
Two trips to McDonald's,
Yeah,
nowadays, and of course, all this food has gone up. Fast food has gone up since
mhm,
all of what's going on, and you shouldn't be eating it anyway because it's not good for you.
that's
It's
right.
not good for you. For me, it's not good for us. So, yeah.
A couple of coffees a month,
Yes.
a couple of lattes.
Mhm.
And I feel this way. I feel this very strongly. Where there's a will, there's a way. We will do whatever we really want to do
That's true.
financially. Sometimes we will borrow to do what we want to do. Well, why can't we
That's
be
the
that
debt.
jealous
Mhm.
about making sure we're building a financial legacy?
Mhm.
And so I think for young people, it's critical. I
Yes, it
tell my
is.
little cousins, they are 20 and 16, and I tell them, hey, don't spend every dime you get. Start saving. And I'll tell you, they've done wonderful jobs.
Good.
But they've had parents that have talked to them about not spending everything that they get, not being broke the day before payday. Okay,
Yeah,
we
very
want to get
true.
to the point where we don't even notice. Oh, is it payday? Oh, okay, because we're not living so out of bounds.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, it's easier the more money you make, maybe. And I say maybe because if you're not disciplined, it does not matter how much money
Say
you make.
that, most
It does not.
certainly.
It does not
Mhm.
matter. I know
That's
people.
why the guy that wins the lottery, he's broke in a year.
Exactly, exactly. And
Mhm,
so get wise counsel. And
mhm,
I kind of alluded to that earlier, but get wise counsel. And when I was talking about mentorship, that's important. There are people that you may look at and they seem visibly wealthy, but I'm going to tell you, real wealth doesn't it isn't ostentatious. Okay,
mm,
real wealth kind
mhm,
of is subtle.
mhm,
And I think it's important to have conversations with people who are where you want to be. All right. So we
good.
have mentors. Our professional mentors are usually people who are in our same career path or say in our same career lane, but have more experience. There are
Mhm,
people that have more financial experience. If you're investing with a company, there are usually financial planners that are available, and some of those, a lot of those services, depending on who you're investing with, are free. Set up a time.
mhm.
Ask them to walk you through some definitions so that you're clear about what you need to do. And then read, and then read, and then read
Speaking of
some
reading,
more.
yes, speaking of reading, my legacy experience, how
Yeah.
my mother's life prepared me for her death.
Yes, yes. And so it's an easy read. And I'll tell you, I started the book and it was very much almost looking like a legal treatise. And my editor said, "Who's this book for? Your colleagues?" And I was like, "Well, no, but I mean, I want to have some credibility. I want people to know that, I know what I'm talking about." She said, "How about you share your heart?"
Mm,
And I said, okay. And just kind of changed the whole trajectory of the book. But what I believe, it's an easy read. It's very relatable. Everyone has someone that they're close to, and then they passed away. And I literally walk you through all of the things that I had to consider when administering their estates. And I had to embrace the language, had to understand the terminology that's related to estate planning, because I think sometimes terminology intimidates people.
yes.
What do you mean by probate? I don't know what that is. And so I have definitions at the beginning of each chapter and literally walk you through. Not only can you administer someone's estate when they die, you can build your own estate. And we talk about ways to do that. What vehicles are in place so that you can amass financial wealth, because we
Mm,
we have other wealth. We want to be spiritually well. We
yes,
want to be
yes.
We want to be balanced people. We want to have good hearts and be able to be settled and secure in ourselves. But we also want to have a financial holdings. Let's put it that way.
Yes,
Financial
we
holdings.
definitely do.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
I'm excited about this book. I think when I see it, it's like, okay, this can be a gift for any person. It should be, any young person, any person of any age. It's like, who is this book for?
yeah.
This book is for everyone. It's for everybody.
It is for everybody. And one of the things I want people to read it before they need to read it,
Yes,
because I
yes.
think sometimes it's not until the death occurs, it's not until, there's the drastic change in circumstances with some family's members' health. And then they're like, I need to get your book. I need to read it. I need to read it. Read it when it's not urgent.
Mm-hmm.
Read and reread it. And I'll
Because,
tell you,
yes,
and
go
I'll
ahead.
tell you, it's important because the stress of the moment, you won't be able to process everything.
Mhm.
You'll get nuggets because there's nuggets in there. There's some good stuff in there, but it's important also to read it when you're not tense, you're not grieving, and you can read it and appreciate the story because you'll find it's relatable. But
Cool.
that's what I've been told.
That's no doubt. And what I was going to say too is it sounds like something it's like we have the word, right? That's my holy grail, the Bible. That's the only grail there is, right? But in that, and I'm sure he speaks of everything that we've already talked about, and scriptures come to mind. But eh, but for this will give you an outline of what you can do to embrace and be successful. I hear success. I hear legacy. I hear heritage. So it kind of flips the script in that people are like, okay, well, estate planning, what does that mean? Well, all of these items and things that you shared with us today, this is something that to me it builds wealth, but and that's what you're wanting to do, isn't it? This is what the American dream is all about. Well, who tells us? Who educates us? Yes, okay, the mentor will or can help. Of course, the parents. But what if they're lacking and needing to be caught up to speed? Well, here's a book that can help them get up to speed. This is for everyone, and I see that this is an opportunity where people can learn and glean. And like Brother Henderson, Elder Henderson said, we lack in this area, and
Mhm.
most Americans lack in this area, no
That-
matter who you are across the board.
That's right.
Now, the book is out there on Amazon. We showed it, so
Yes.
you can get it. It looks like it's available as in Kindle form as well,
In the
hardcover,
hardcover,
some
paperback.
paperback.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
you might want to get a couple. Get a hardcover and hold on to it, then get that paperback where you can underline it and everything,
Yes.
and then give the hardcover as a gift.
Yes.
If you're in
Yes.
the Kindle, it's out there too for that.
And it has a checklist in it. And so I just kind of tell people, just rip
Yes.
that out of there, just rip it out the page and start writing down your assets, your holdings. Because what you want to do is you want to leave a trail for people. One of the things that I experience in my practice is sometimes people don't know what they own, or
Mhm.
they know, but they've passed away. And so the people who
Mhm.
are left behind are playing detective. And I
Mhm.
don't want to grieve and play detective. So just have all that stuff written out so
Have
I'll
it
know
all
what
written
to
down.
do.
And we lose things too, don't we?
Yes,
If
yes.
if it's not written down, if we don't identify it, then that's where the state will
Yes,
it
it'll
like
cheat the state. And you see all these unclaimed property
yeah.
documents. That's what that is. Those accounts that somebody forgot about. And sometimes it can be thousands of dollars. Okay,
Mhm.
thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
Income tax refunds, all these stimulus or economic impact payments, those are going
Yeah.
into accounts. And if you didn't stay on top of those accounts can just close, and those monies will escheat to the state. So you want to just make sure that that doesn't happen, because your family worked hard for that.
That's right.
Yes,
That is
yes.
so true.
I want everything that is supposed to be mine, right?
Yes,
We want everything that God asked for us.
that's right. That is right. Now, you're out here on your website too. Of course, if you forget now, guys, that the website is mylegacyexperience.com. And if you go out there, you can see the background, the story of how um, Attorney Watson got the idea to write the book that is definitely an asset to any family, a great guideline checklist for how you should manage. You should manage your life and the life of moving forward with your family. Now, I see speaking engagements out here too.
Yes, and so one of the things that happened with this is that as I when I wrote the book, I had a launch, and then people were like, "Hey, can you come and speak to this organization? Can you speak to this women's group?" And I've just been blown away by the opportunities that I have received, and it's important to me because I think I have a unique voice, not just the way I sound, but my story and
Yes,
my voice is very unique,
timely.
and I want to share that with as many people as possible. And in addition to that, last year, because of COVID, there were some speaking engagements that got canceled. Some of them switched to virtual platforms, but then I was able to create podcasts, and so that gives on-demand information about a variety of estate planning vehicles. So there's one on probate, there's one on trust, there's one on life insurance, there's one on investing. And so I continue to build that portfolio so that people have resources so that they can hear. You have to study in order
Yes, you do.
to for things to digest. And so the podcasts are examples of ways for people to hear this information and rewind it if they need to. Now, what did she say? Now, what was that? And so that information can resonate in their spirit, and they can be moved to action. Because that's my whole goal. I want people to be moved to action. Yes,
That's right.
yes.
Good.
For some people, I can help with facilitating some of their goals, but the whole point is I want to reach as many people as possible to encourage them to leave this legacy, to encourage them to take some action. Because I promise you, your family will be blessed if you do so.
And this would be a legacy and a heritage that you could pass down through generations too,
Yes,
guys.
yes.
You learn it, teach your children, then your children teach your grandchildren, just to where that way it accumulates and you come to have a lifestyle that is better than the one before. Yeah,
That's
pass that on.
And one of the last things I want to say is, and
Mhm.
so I don't like people living in condemnation. Okay, so
Mhm.
maybe for 45 years, you just had debt to the hilt, and your credit's bad, and all kinds of situations are going on.
Mhm.
I think anyone that has a testimony of getting on the other side will know that sometimes in life things happen to you. Okay,
Yes, they
but it
do.
is never too late. Never. It's
Oh,
never too late. I don't care if you start today and
yes.
you have 10 more years. It was not too late. Why? Because these last 10 years were your greater 10 years. So I just want to encourage anyone who's thinking about making some changes, who's thinking about uh, um, even incorporating a budget into their lifestyle. You can do it. It's never too late. It's never.
Yes. And that's hashtag never too late on
Yes,
your
yes,
social media.
yes.
Most definitely. Wow. W- we need you to come back. We need you to come back.
Yeah, I don't know if I got through all the documents that I wanted to talk about, but I think the thing with this is so much to talk
Yeah.
about, right?
Yeah.
and I get excited, and so I'm sorry if I kind of veered off,
No,
but
no, you did great in that you've given us wonderful information, something to take on this general information that a person can take and use it to where they can grow from it. And that's really kind of what we talk about anyway out here at Obstruction of Justice. Yeah, we want to do all we can to support our communities, and really the communities get better when the families get
that's it.
better.
That's it. That's
Yes.
everything. That's everything. We have strong, healthy, financially fit families. We will have strong, healthy, financially fit communities, and we'll be able to make a difference in this world. Yes,
Yes, yes,
absolutely.
most definitely. Yes, you'll have to come back and we'll kind of we'll pick something, and because this is rich, it's very good, very good. I do want to let everyone know too, just kind of give us an update on where we are with the ASB&C Scholarship Fund. Now, we do support nonprofit organizations that are supporting young people as they work remotely and online. We do provide uh, tutor time, tutor scholarships, tutor support as well for young people who are at home, and also, facilities as well. So now other nonprofit organizations that have opened up their doors to provide a safe place, and a place where the young people can be directed to stay focused on the task of learning, which is super, super difficult, even in class sometimes, but much less being on the side where they're having to be home by themselves because people are transitioning and having to work and still provide for their families. So there are quite a few students that are still at home. Some are going back, but that's one thing, a project that we've worked on, the ASB&C Fun and Learning Mobile Tutor Project. So just keep in mind that if you want to donate, and it's not a uh, a donation to where you get a tax write-off, but it's such a small amount to share with a young people to where they can continue and do better in their education and not fall through the cracks. So that's our effort there. It's coming along nicely. All right. Just want to let everyone know that we're out here. And again, Attorney Watson, thank you so much for sharing and joining us today. And we got an earful, and now there's a challenge. You called us out. 30 days.
30 days.
30 days.
One thing. You have to do one thing. And that's that'll get you excited and get you started on this path and this journey, because you'll always be making changes. There'll always be opportunities to do something else, but if you just make that one step, I promise you the second and third steps will be a lot easier.
All right, all right. We're looking forward to moving forward and doing better. Thank you again. And thank you for joining another Obstruction of Justice program. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Goodbye.
Justice now.
Justice. Obstruction to justice.